Councillors and officers and those joining us online, welcome to East Gippsland Shire Council's meeting today, 17th of October. For those of you interested in history, today was the day Mother Teresa was awarded her Nobel Peace Prize in 1979. East Gippsland Shire Council live streams, records and publishes its meeting via webcasting. These recordings are available for viewing by the public. During this meeting, any members of the public who are addressing the Council will have their image and comments recorded. No other person has the right to record Council meetings unless approval is granted by the Chair, that's me. In line with the Local Government Act 2020, councils are able to attend meetings electronically, and hopefully Councillor will, who we're expecting. Members of the public are invited to view the live... I'll start that again. Council meetings are electronically... In line with the Local Government Act 2020, councillors are able to attend council meetings electronically or in person, and the meetings will be open to the public via live streaming. Good evening, John. You've just arrived. Good. Members of the public are invited to view the live stream council meeting by following the link on the council's website or Facebook page. If we encounter difficulties with the live streaming during the meeting, we'll adjourn until the issue is resolved, and if those technical issues can't be resolved, the meeting may be postponed to a later time or date. East Gippsland Shire Council acknowledges the Gunai, Kurnai, Monero and Bidawal peoples as traditional custodians of this land that encompass East Gippsland Shire and their enduring relationship with country. The traditional custodians have cared for and nurtured East Gippsland for tens of thousands of years. Council values their living culture and practices and their right to self-determination. Council pays respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples living in East Gippsland, their elders past, present and the future. So a member's attendance can only be recorded as present if they're online, when they can confirm they meet all of these criteria. And Councillor White's joining us online, so I'll just go through this with Councillor White now. That we need to understand that Councillor White can hear the proceedings, they can see the other members in attendance and can be seen by the other members, and they can be heard to speak. So I'll now confirm with Councillor White that Councillor White can hear and be heard by each other, by us, and note the assurance from Councillor White that the location he's participating from is secure to ensure confidential deliberations remain confidential. Councillor White, can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can.
Great, and we can see and hear you. Can you confirm the location you are participating from is secure and to ensure confidential items are dealt with in a confidential manner?
Certainly can.
Great, thank you for that. And if a councillor participating electronically experiences technical difficulties during the meeting, we may adjourn briefly to enable the councillor to rejoin the meeting, and should Councillor White be unable to connect within 5 minutes, the meeting may resume in the councillor's absence. Thank you for allowing me to say that. It's important. Item 1.2, apologies, and I believe, CEO, we have apologies from Councillor Van Diegel and Councillor Buckley tonight.
That is correct, Mayor.
Thank you. 1.3, councillors and officers, are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Thank you. I'm going to confirm now on 1.4, councillors, that the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday, 26 September 2023 be confirmed. I have a mover, Councillor Allen, Councillor Uri. Would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Uri, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Was I here? Was I? I wasn't here, was I? The motion's carried. Thank you. I'll abstain in that case. The next meeting, ladies and gentlemen, is the statutory meeting to be held here on Thursday, 26th October 2023, commencing at 6 p.m. That's Thursday week. I haven't seen any requests for leave of absence.
There are none.
Thank you, CEO. We're moving on to open forum, councillors, and item 1.7.1 is a petition, and I believe we have a speaker to that petition.
We do, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Fechner.
Mr. Fechner, are you here? Evening, come and join us. Now, this is for the benefit of everybody speaking tonight. Thanks, Mr. Fechner, and anybody else who speaks to other matters. So if you are addressing the council, I just ask you to be reminded to extend due courtesy and respect to the council, the staff and the processes under which we operate, and take direction from the chair, that's me, whenever called upon to do so. There won't be discussion or debate with you, but councillors may ask questions of clarification. And as chair, I have reserve the right to cease the question or submission at any point if it's deemed inappropriate or inconsistent with our governance rules or mutual respect charter, and the mutual respect charter is outside there. But you know all of these things, Mr Fechner, so welcome, and you have 5 minutes.
So, Councillor, Mayor Reeves and fellow councillors, this topic was the adult sex education books found in the children's section of the public library. I believe in the importance of teaching children about respecting all individuals. However, there's a fine line between age-appropriate education and introducing complex concepts prematurely. Recently, while I was at the East Gippsland Shire Council Public Library, I noticed that there were adult sex education books in the children's section. These adult sex education books contain content that is beyond the comprehension of young children. Early exposure to such topics can lead to gender confusion and misunderstanding. Children deserve a childhood that is free from the weighty complexities of adult issues. Moreover, parents have the right to guide their children through discussions about gender and sexuality, tailoring these conversations to their family values and beliefs. The library should be a place where parents feel comfortable bringing their children without worrying about age-inappropriate content. It's not about censorship, it's about ensuring our children's innocence is preserved while respecting parents' rights to educate their children on sensitive subjects in their own time and manner. Above average suicide attempts in the LGBTQA community is one of the reasons why I'm adamant that our public libraries should not be advocating or opening young minds to what is adult sex education. The following statistics are taken from the LGBTIQ+ Health Australia October 2021 article called Snapshot of Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Statistics for LGBTIQ+ people. And the figures are staggering. I'm not going to read them all, but at 6:30 you're all going to get an email with this in them. 27.8% of bisexual people aged 8 and over are reported that they attempted suicide. That's 8. 35% of transgender people aged 18 and over reported that they'd attempted suicide in their lifetime. Yet the statistics for the general population are vastly different. 3.2% of the people aged 16 and over reported that attempted suicide in their lifetime. 2.4% of the people report that attempted suicide in the past 12 months. Big difference in the figures. Compared to the general population, the LGBTIQ+ people are more likely to have thoughts of suicide. My question is, why should we allow this ideology to be promoted in the junior non-fiction section of our public libraries? And it was there for all to see. Exposing young minds to a potentially harmful and confusing material. The other interesting thing is, under the Adult Sex Crime Act, the East Gippsland Shire Council and their public libraries could be committed criminal acts according to the current Victorian Government Acts. And please note,
Mr Fechner, we'll probably need to fact check that.
Yes, I'm
but
going
we'll
to.
take that as a comment at the moment.
Yes,
Thank
I'm
you.
going to give it to you.
Yep.
These are the ones. These are the ones you can look up, and you've got the email. The Crimes Act 1958, Section 51G, talks about possession of child abusive material. Crimes Act 1958, Section 51D, distributing child abuse material. Crimes Act 1958, Section 49M, grooming for sexual conduct with a child under the age of 16. Crimes Act 1958, Section 49L, encouraging a child aged 16 or 17 under care, supervision or authority to engage in or be involved in sexual activity. My understanding is that East Gippsland Shire may also be held accountable under Acts 1995, Section 57, for publication or transmission of objectionable material if minors have access to online pornography and other similar kinds of material. May I suggest that the East Gippsland Shire Council and councillors take a very close look at the Victorian Government Crimes Act before you make a decision or vote to retain adult sex education books in the children's sections of East Gippsland Shire public libraries.
Mr Fechner, we'll take those as comments. Are there any questions of Mr Fechner, councillors? Yes, Councillor Crook.
Thank you. Just a question of clarification. You've made the statement that this material is in our libraries. You've said that it's in the junior section. You said that it's in the children's section. The day we first received your petition, the content concerned me, so I went straight to the Bairnsdale Library and I looked around the children's section and I asked the staff, who I believe have pretty good understanding of the content of the library, if they could please direct me to any sexually explicit material.
Shall I take...
And if you'd let me finish, please. They were somewhat confused by the question and weren't able to show me any of this said material. They did, however, take me to the parenting section where they showed me some, what I guess you could call sex education books and the like. There are also some books on gender identity, which in a gender diverse community I think is entirely appropriate. So I haven't done an audit of our libraries myself, but I just wonder if you could suggest to us which libraries you're talking about and which section of those libraries, because I certainly couldn't find any of the material that you refer to.
I had a feeling that question would be raised, and it doesn't surprise me that it was. So I actually took a photo of two things. I took a photo of where the book, and it's on my phone, and I took a photo of the book beside the sign that said junior non-fiction site. Clearly in that, it was sitting up there large as life, and since it's gone back, it's gone, it's disappeared. When I asked the library, they stated that it's been removed, but it was clear as day, and I knew that I'd have that as an objection,
Okay.
so I took a photo of it to make sure, so there was no misunderstandings. And if you look at the emails, you're going to get the photo at 6:30. I didn't think I was going to be speaking this early, but you'll get the photos of those two images covered.
Okay, thanks for answering the question. Councillor, is there any further questions of Mr Fechner? No. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Manager Business Excellence.
Thank you, Mayor,
Thank
and
you.
through you. Councillors, before you is a report regarding a petition submitted by Carl Fechner from Bairnsdale, lodged on the 25th of September 2023, requesting the review of books in East Gippsland Library collections. The petition was received via an electronic copy and states, I, the undersigned, urgently request your attention and action regarding the need to review and address the presence of adult sex education books in the children's section of the East Gippsland Shire Council Public Library. The petition has been received and presented in accordance with Governance Rule 8.7. Councillors have been provided with a full copy of the petition separately. In the interests of respecting the privacy of signatories and in accordance with the Privacy and Data Protection Act of 2014, a copy of the petition has not been included in this report. Thank you, councillors. This report is presented for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms Elling. Councillors, are there any questions of the officer? Thanks, councillors. There's a recommendation there about receiving this report and responding appropriately. Is there a motion, councillors?
Did you ask for someone to...
Yes, I'm wondering if there's a motion. Thank you. Is the mover, is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Uri. Councillor Stowe, did you want to speak to the motion?
No.
Councillor Uri.
Yes, just briefly, Mayor, thank you. Notwithstanding the fact that I think there are some false assumptions and conclusions in some of Mr Fechner's comments, I think the fact that Council has been presented with a petition and it complies with the rules guiding petitions, I think the correct procedure is to accept the petition and seek a report from our council officers in response to the petition. So I look forward to that.
Yep.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Councillor Uri. Councillors, the motion opposed? Councillor White, are you opposing the motion to accept this?
No, sorry, the hand went up a little bit too quick. I actually just wish to speak for it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So next question, would any other councillors like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor White, go ahead.
I would actually like to thank those people who have signed the petition and thank Mr Fechner for his efforts because I became aware of this also and was most concerned. And some people have remained very quiet on this, but possibly the reason the Councillor Crook couldn't find the books was that they had already been removed from that section of the library. So, which was, I think, the right thing to do. How they got there, that's really up to the CEO and his staff to affirm that. I think it's a terrible mistake, and but now I would just say that it's been resolved, and hopefully that it never happens again.
Councillor
Thank you.
White. Councillors, would any other councillors like to speak for or against the motion? Councillors, I'd just like to say that I'm happy to receive this and happy to be able to respond to set the record straight. That I think that our library staff have incredible integrity, know the content of the books, they know age-appropriate literature, and I think that there's, again, as you mentioned, Councillor Uri, some assumptions drawn between books and behaviours, and that is, quite an archaic view, I believe. But I'm happy to support the receipt of this so that we can actually set the record straight. Councillors, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously, CEO.
Thank you.
Councillors, we're moving on to item 1.7.2, which is questions of council. And once again, I'll just draw those people's attention to the notes that I mentioned before around in open forum and the dignity that's required and courtesy in regarding speaking to council. And I also note that there's a couple of late questions that were asked, and there is a cut-off time, but I'm happy with the fact that at least one of those questions raises a new item, and I'm happy to have that introduced tonight, CEO.
Thank you.
So who do we have first, and can you guide us through that, please?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Our first question was from Grace, I'm not trying to pronounce the surname, McCaughey. I've probably got that wrong. My apologies, Grace, if I have. But I've asked, I'm a little bit full of cold tonight, so I've asked the General Manager of Business Excellence to read the question on my behalf.
Oh, okay. Oh, right,
on
because of your
Grace's
vote. Yep,
behalf.
sure. Are you happy to do that, Ms Allen? Great.
Yes, ma'am.
Terrific. Thank you.
Okay.
Acting General Manager, go ahead.
Yes, and thank you. This is from Grace McCaughey. I hope we're pronouncing that correctly.
Makaki?
McCaughey?
Great, thank
McCaughey.
you.
Thank you so much. Has Council budgeted for remediation works to the important stormwater management works on this floodplain, which will be required when major flooding and eventually sea level rise cause untreated water to be released into the all-important Ramsar site area? I understand that increased and more frequent floods are predicted in the CSIRO report to Council in 2020. Thank you, Mayor. Just noting there was no preamble for that.
Okay, thank you. Mr McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. As everyone would be aware, there's been some considerable discussion about the impacts of sea level rise and inundation and those impacts occurring in the future, and a lot of that discussion is centred around periods in the order of 2070, that sort of period into the future. And I think the first thing to note is that generally Council doesn't budget in that out to that time frame, and so the very direct response to the question is in terms of has Council budgeted for those things? Well, we're not in that position yet. The other thing, two other things I just note, there is a recommended condition in the proposed the recommendation before Council tonight that a coastal hazard vulnerability assessment be undertaken prior to the commencement of the development, and that will enable these risks to be further assessed and to make recommendations, particularly in terms of the design and management of the stormwater management system into the future to mitigate those risks. And I also note that, as I've responded to previous questions on this matter, that VCAT member turned their mind to the question of what might be the impacts on the lakes in the event that a stormwater management system was inundated, and that previously the VCAT member had concluded that those risks were low. Thank you.
Mr McConnell, thank you. CEO.
Mayor, the second question is from Kate Cooper, and I would note that Kate submitted 2 questions, but only one of them was agreed to be read tonight. So, Kate, if she's here.
I am.
There you go.
Hello,
Thank
Kate,
you.
welcome, thank you.
you.
And the microphone is functioning there, I'll just check.
Hello.
Yeah, test
Yeah.
1, 2, good on you, you're on.
1, 2, 3, I'm ready.
Terrific, welcome, you've got 5 minutes,
Okay.
go ahead.
Good evening, councillors and fellow visitors. My question is, what data and climate science did planners use in deciding that the proposed development, particularly the drainage infrastructure, has in fact minimised the natural hazard risks and financial costs to the community while safeguarding significant and legally protected natural values?
Mr McConnell, what
Mayor,
data
through
have
you,
we
can I
used?
just
Referral
confirm-
agency data?
Can I confirm with the CEO that that's the question that was approved?
Correct.
Yeah.
That was the question.
So, I'm sorry, I'm just looking for the question to just recap the specific details. Could you please read the question for me again?
Sure. What data and climate science did planners use in deciding that the proposed development, particularly the drainage infrastructure, has in fact minimised the natural hazard risks and financial costs to the community while safeguarding significant and legally protected natural values?
So, thank you, and through you, Mayor.
Yep, thanks.
So officers have considered the recommendations of the Catchment Management Authority in terms of its advice to us in terms of what matters to consider in terms of sea level rise, etc. And as I mentioned earlier, there's also a proposed condition within the recommendation for Council this evening for a formal coastal hazard vulnerability assessment to be undertaken, which will provide that further opportunity for the impacts of those matters to be considered, particularly in relation to the stormwater management system.
Okay.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
Yep, terrific. Just make sure the CEO hasn't expired over there. No, he's back again. He assures us he doesn't have COVID, so it's okay, everyone.
My apologies, Mayor and councillors.
That's all right. You okay?
Yes,
Good.
yes.
That was Kate, so...
Our third question is from Louise Crisp, who I believe is here.
Is Louise here? Oh, g'day, Louise. Come in. Evening. How are you?
Good evening, councillors. The question relates to the Point Fullarton development, as I gather you would understand.
Thank you.
The Paynesville Foreshore Management Plan in 2017 acknowledges that the risks associated with erosion and sea level rise on foreshore areas like Point Fullarton are high. The plan also states that any future planning and design work should take account and respond to known and predicted sea level rise. According to the CSIRO report on the vulnerability of the Gippsland Lakes to climate change in 2022, a 1 in 100 year sea level event such as extreme storms and tides are projected to occur approximately every 11 to 16 years by 2030, and much more frequently by the end of the century, of course. Neil Craigie, the drainage expert who advised Crossco in the preparation of the stormwater plans for the Point Fullarton development, acknowledged in the 2011 Fullarton VCAT hearing that the soil conditions are likely to include potential for tunnel erosion and acid sulphate soils. However, Neil Craigie's expert reviews of the most recent plans for the site admit any consideration of the long-term impacts of storm, tidal surge or foreshore erosion on the stormwater infrastructure. My question therefore is, given the drainage experts' reviews did not consider storm or tidal surge or foreshore erosion in their impact analysis, and the East Gippsland CMA did not assess the stormwater plans for flood or coastal hazard risks, how did the Shire Planning Department's internal review of the proposed stormwater management strategy determine the design will effectively treat stormwater runoff till the next century, end of this century,
Louise,
I should
thank
say.
you.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. The recommended conditions of approval include a number of aspects related to the detailed stormwater management design and among other things, and these are required to be undertaken to council satisfaction and in relation to the stormwater system design, also to the satisfaction of the Catchment Management Authority. I do note that in approving a subdivision, council is primarily focused on the key attributes of the subdivision in terms of the lot layout, location of roads and things like that, and that it is quite common for matters such as the detail of the stormwater management system to be subject to subsequent review and approval following detailed design. I'd also note that has been covered in answers to several other questions over the past two council meetings. There is now a requirement proposed for a coastal hazard vulnerability assessment that will again assess the potential long-term impacts of these matters on the stormwater infrastructure and make recommendations in relation to measures to mitigate those impacts.
Right, thank you. Am I able to comment?
What are you going to comment on, Louise?
Just previous experience with stormwater management plans.
Yep. I'm not sure that's relevant to this one. Yeah, I mean, we have seen some images that you've sent recently, so...
Yes, it's in regard to the level of design that's presented that the council's voting on. That I just wish to say that I think that all the detail that's required to make a decision, whether it's at VCAT, if it was at VCAT, needs to be presented here, and that was our experience with the first VCAT case that we did with the Woody Group subdivision as well, and that's why it was returned to council.
Yep, okay.
Thank you.
Look, thanks for those comments. I think there are some complexities around providing detailed design and so on at a planning stage, primary planning stage. But anyway, thank you for those comments.
Thank you.
Good on you. How are we going, CEO?
Thank you, Mayor. We have one final question from David Nicastro, which was allowed by yourself through the mayoral discretion.
Okay, David.
Just got a dead leg. Greatly appreciate the opportunity.
Good on you, no worries. This is a fresh question, so yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I note that the new drainage reserve proposal will exclude public access as explained in the proponent's EPBC referral, page 20. I quote, "A dog-proof fence will be erected around the reserve area and dense shrubbery will be planted around the periphery to prevent pet and pedestrian access as well as traffic from disturbing any Latham snipe using the reserve area." However, attachment 8 of this council meeting agenda sets out the reasons for the officer recommendation. And I quote, "An assessment of reasonable amount of public open space contribution is made and no additional financial contribution is considered to be appropriate. Though the substantial reserve area will be dedicated to drainage, the function will include passive recreation as conditioned, such as shared use paths which will link towards Equal Point. The officer recommendation here is clearly inconsistent with the intended purpose and function of the proposed drainage/wildlife reserve that is integral to the proponent's EBPC impact mitigation measures. You simply can't have passive recreation in a dedicated wildlife reserve that actually prohibits public access. They're just not compatible. So my question is, how can the development's public open space contribution be met if the council is to comply with the proponent's EPBC reserve plans, which clearly prohibit public access?
Well, let's get some clarification on that if possible. Mr. McConnell.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So first thing to note is that the ultimate use and arrangements for that open space area will be guided by the outcomes from the EBPC referral. So that will determine some matters in due course. I'd also note that the application before Council tonight is part of a multi-stage residential development, and there has in fact been previous contributions of open space in earlier stages of the development, which actually satisfy the requirements set out in the planning scheme. And so any open space use of the area at the base of or at the bottom of 10 Fullarton Drive in that sense would be over and above and an extra contribution. Thank you.
Mr. McConnell, thank you. Thanks, David. Appreciate your question.
Thank you.
I think that concludes our questions of council tonight, and I don't think there are any public submissions.
Only the one that we had from
about
the petition. So
right. Okay.
There's no further.
There's no further. Okay. Well, councillors, we'll move on to item 1.8, and that is items for tabling. But before we do, I'm going to table a condolence note, councillors. So I would like to acknowledge the passing of Dr. Kevin Tolhurst earlier this month. Kevin's work focused on bushfire behaviour. One of Kevin's skills, and one of his many skills, was scientific communication. His ability to translate complex scientific information in a way that the rest of us could understand and make sense of was extraordinary. Kevin passed away in Malakuta after presenting a community talk, and I think it was to the Howard Society up there, about bushfire behaviour in native forests. On behalf of Council, I extend my condolences to Kevin's family and friends and acknowledge his great work on bushfire prevention and for bushfire-prone communities. Items to be tabled, item 1.8.1, I think we just note that it is being tabled. We don't need any motions or anything, councillors. That would be my understanding.
Mr Mayor, I wonder if I could just make one small comment on that item, please?
Yes, please. Go ahead, Councillor Uri.
So this item relates to the performance report from the Audit and Risk Committee, of which I'm one of the councillors. I just wanted to highlight, under question 3, I thought there was a very insightful comment made about the amount of time which is allocated in this committee to looking backwards, so receiving reports that relate to things that have already happened, as opposed to looking forward and time spent on perhaps strategic planning and discussion. I thought it was very insightful and something that councillors could take note of, because I think it's a general principle in our meetings that is very important. I wondered if I could ask a question, please, of the Acting Manager of Governance to find out what will be done with that comment in there. Will that just relate to the work of the Audit and Risk Committee, or will it come back to Council? What's the process? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and through you.
Yeah.
Through you, Mayor. The functions and responsibilities of the Audit and Risk Committee are set out in section 54(2) of the Local Government Act and the charter, the committee's charter. In turn, these functions and responsibilities inform the committee's annual work program, which is adopted by that committee as required under that same section 54, but number 3 of the Local Government Act. Once adopted, that annual work plan may be affected by external and internal unplanned related events which could arise during that annual period. Where situations such as those arise, additional reports are presented to the committee. Whilst the committee has the discretion to determine what is in its annual work program, it must still align to the committee's functions and responsibilities under that Local Government Act and its charter. However, without allocating 100% of its capacity, therefore allowing other items to be brought forward due to unforeseen circumstances and tasks, therefore allowing the committee to fulfil its purpose. Noting the annual performance report, as you mentioned, has this particular insight, and that the report is compiled by the committee members itself. Officers will further explore this with the committee to inform the preparation of the 2024 annual work programme. I hope that addressed your question, Councillor Uri.
Yes, thank you very much.
And
Thanks,
look,
Mr Mayor.
thanks for pointing that out too, because there's a retrospective and prospective function of that Audit and Risk Committee, and focusing on future risks is part of their work as well. Yep, thank you, Councillor Uri. Councillors, let me just refocus my attention here. I don't think there's any notices of motion. There's neither deferred business. And we are going to now move on to Councillors and Delegates' report. And I'm happy to move around to you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
To start
Mayor?
the proceedings.
I'd start off with, on September the 30th, along with your good self, travelled to Mallacoota for the opening of the Mallacoota Skate Park. It's a work of art in itself. The abalone shell that's a feature of it is really something to see. And it was great when we got there. There was kids from 2 right through.
42, probably too old, right?
Yeah, some of them were. And it was a great atmosphere. But I want to acknowledge the work of Don Ashby and his committee and band of helpers that brought that to life. And the highlight of the whole opening event was there was 30 children present when the ribbon was cut. They all held on to a section of the ribbon, and if Anthony's wondering what happened to the ribbon as a result, 30 children walked away with a section of ribbon with a logo on it as a memento, which I thought was pretty good. And then on the 1st of October, along with Councillor Jane, I attended the Gippsland Yacht Club opening season, which was an inside event as it was blowing a gale. We were threatened by fires, but it was a really great day, and Kate Charlton-Ross gave a really good update on her work on dolphins. Another really enjoyable thing that I did was on the 8th of October, I attended the opening of the Mount Taylor mountain bike track. That group out there, I think, got a grant, bushfire grant of about $360,000, and value added probably 4 times or more than that through voluntary labour, and have built quite an amazing mountain bike track. And the highlight of the whole opening was once the chain was cut to open the track, there was a mountain bike train, which was 30 or 40 riders going over the jumps one after the other. And it was spectacular, and no one got killed, which was quite amazing at the heights they were getting at. A couple of things I would like to mention too is that in that week we had both fires and flood. And I just want to record my appreciation not only to the emergency services but also to our staff that responded to those events, and thank them for their efforts in keeping our communities safe. And a bit of late news that only come in this morning. Congratulations to our Mayor on his Mayor Emeritus Award, which he received at the Municipal Association Annual General Meeting last week.
Thank you.
Very well deserved, and congratulations. And he's a bit greedy. He fronted up again along with Councillor Mendy, who both received awards in recognition of more than 10 years service to local government. So congratulations to both of you. Well done.
Well, it's very, very generous and kind of you, but I will point out that Councillor Uri is also a Mayor Emeritus. Indeed.
Oh,
so
sorry.
Congratulations to you.
But not yesterday. No.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah. Councillor Stowe.
I've got nothing significant to report. However, I'd like to mention the Paynesville show coming up on the 11th of the month, and a number of councillors are going out there to do various things, including the Mayor, who's going to judge the baby contest. Now, I think he'll need that badge when he gets out there if he gives a prize to the wrong baby. I'd give them all first if I were you, Mark.
Luckily,
So come along to the Paynesville show if you get a chance. It's on the 11th and be a great event.
Good on you. Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Councillor Crook.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I too attended the Mount Taylor Fox Superflow downhill mountain bike event a couple of weeks ago. It was a jam-packed weekend. I didn't stay for the whole thing, but almost 200 riders competing from as far away as Queensland. I took the opportunity to speak to one of the event organisers from an enterprise called Rocky Trails, who run about 40 of these events every year and are increasingly finding it hard to keep up with the level of demand. She really stressed the need for local government to back in this industry, and of course we're doing a great job of that in Omeo. We weren't a sponsor of this particular event, but hopefully we will be there with flying colours next year. I'd also like to acknowledge the great work done by the volunteer team from the East Gippsland Mountain Bike Club for all their hard work on the day and dedication over the last few years. The trails are a real credit to our region, and the Rocky Trails people acknowledged that. They said these are some of the best downhill trails Victoria has to offer. Wow. So they're a real credit to us and a real credit to those volunteers. The other event I wanted to mention was the Big Bonang afternoon in Bonang, which actually started in Goongerah. There's a collection of service providers from government and other areas in some of our most remote communities. It was a real time to celebrate the launch and culmination of no less than 9 years' work to deliver what we are told is a world first in health technology, the HoloLens, a device that allows remote medicine like never before. And again, it was a great day and a real credit to all of those people and those remote communities that have been involved, the people from all the health organisations, our own place managers, and the work of our staff too. So congratulations to everybody. It was a great day. And I might just leave it there for now. Thank you.
Councillor Crook, thank you for that. And just to reassure everybody, I think the reference to Fox is a brand of suspension, not the animal.
Yes, very, very true. Fox racing
Fox float
gear,
suspension or something like that, isn't it, for
that.
mountain bikes? So
yes, not the feral animal.
not the feral animal. Thanks for that. Councillor White, invite you.
Thank you. Council-wise, nothing to report other than from a personal point of view, it's been a hell of a couple of weeks.
It has for you, I know.
As people have pointed out, you know, it started very well, as Councillor Stowe would attest, that Collingwood won the grand final, which was fantastic, but it went downhill from there. Yes, the fires came very, very close. Then we got a flood, and although we didn't feel it, the region got an earthquake as well, all within the week, and I thought that was pretty impressive. So, but we're here out the other side of it, just keeping a careful eye on the still to be contained hotspots within that zone at the moment, because as the temperature rises later on, that could still impact with embers out onto unburnt country. So thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor White. Councillor Grecian.
Thank you. Look, I've been to a few things in the last 3 weeks, and some of which have been mentioned by other councillors, or hopefully will be. I'm just going to talk about a couple of things. One of them, I was invited by Bairnsdale West Primary School to speak about leadership to 10 students selected because of their leadership qualities. I'm really impressed with this school and the way it supports and promotes its students. I enjoyed the experience very much and encouraged them all to become doctors and counsellors. So that was...
There's no conflict of interest there, is there?
No
Child abuse.
But I just wanted to make personal comment about the Voice referendum and about the potential impact of the result of this referendum, because we have responsibility for our decisions and our actions. And I'm not questioning the result, but I'm really concerned that the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people here in East Gippsland do not lose trust in non-Indigenous Australia, nor lose hope for better lives with the same opportunities as we have. I believe that people did not vote no because of denial of the First Nations people of this country, nor of their 65,000 years of history in this country. And I do believe that we as a community will continue to be committed to closing the gap in health, education, jobs and housing that the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have experienced since colonisation. And I believe we now must hold out our hands in friendship and love and walk alongside First Nations people to provide the support that they ask for reconciliation and to close the gap. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Grecian, thank you. Councillor Uri.
Yes, thank you. I also attended the wonderful Big Bonang afternoon along with other councillors, and I won't say anything much more except that it was a great afternoon, and I'm very sorry for getting the Tesla lost, only for a short period though, and it was really Google's fault anyway. The Deputy Mayor has mentioned the MAV Gala dinner in Melbourne. So this is an annual Service Awards dinner combined with a conference. I attended with the Mayor and the CEO, and it was a really wonderful, high-spirited evening where I was, as the Deputy Mayor said, I was delighted to receive my 10-year Councillor Service Award, and I'd like to offer the Mayor congratulations for receiving his as well as the Mayor Emeritus Award. And just to record my appreciation to the MAV for recognising service in the local government sector in this way. To me, it's quite meaningful. And I also appreciate the support of East Gippsland Shire Council in enabling myself and my husband to attend. And just a brief mention too regarding the outcomes of the referendum. Just last Saturday, for those who voted no, there may be cause for relief or celebration. For those in our community who voted yes, there may be a lot of hurt and disappointment. I stand with and sympathise with those people, in particular with those First Nations people who were looking for change and betterment from the status quo. It seems like a wise response to take a week to reflect and contemplate, and again, I stand with our Indigenous community in doing this.
Councillor Uri, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Councillors, I, on the agenda, have a whole item on the agenda dedicated to the mayoral term address, so I will defer anything I say until then. And those of you who are gathered for the next item, which is the planning matter, you may be saved, because I dare say you probably won't hang around for that. But we thank you, councillors, for the work that you do in the community, and I acknowledge that you do travel a lot and you do represent the council, and people in our community, our residents, highly value the work and your presence. So good on you and well done. Council, let's move on to item 5, which is officers' reports, and item 5.1.1, which is a planning application, 5.2022.344.1, which is a multi-lot subdivision, native vegetation removal, 10 Fullarton Drive, Paynesville. And I will defer to General Manager, Place and Community, Mr McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report in relation to the planning permit application for the multi-lot subdivision and native vegetation removal at 10 Fullarton Drive, Paynesville. This matter's been before Council a number of times for consideration, so I don't propose to repeat the introductory comments from previous meetings. I would like, however, to note just a couple of things. Firstly, a proposed condition has been included that requires would require a coastal hazard vulnerability assessment to be undertaken to the satisfaction of Council prior to the works being undertaken. And this would include recommendations in relation to mitigating the risks to stormwater drainage system. So that is something I just wish to draw to your attention. I also note separately, or an additional condition requires that the stormwater management plan is prepared as a condition of the proposed approval, and that stormwater management plan includes the detailed design of the stormwater management system, and that would also be required to be provided, and this needs to be to the satisfaction of both Council and the Catchment Management Authority. Third thing I just would note is there have been some questions asked about the management of the open space area. The including the area that includes some of the drainage, proposed drainage assets, and its management as habitat for the Latham snipe. And as I responded to a previous question at a previous meeting in relation to this issue, Council recognises that management in this area in the future will need to consider the Latham snipe, and in that will be guided by the outcomes of the current EPBC processing. So, councillors, before you is a recommendation to issue a notice of decision in relation to this planning permit application. I've got Martin Richardson, our Manager Planning, also online available to assist with any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr McConnell. Councillors, are there any questions of officers? You have been questioned out on this particular matter, have you, I dare say?
I wish to put a motion.
I'm just looking to you, Councillor Greason, because you have advised me previously. Would you like to
put a motion?
Foreshadowing an alternative motion?
Yes.
Okay. Right, councillors, we have that on the table. Yes.
Just to check process, I think it would be worth clarifying, is a motion being foreshadowed or is a motion actually being tabled?
Well, I'm just at the moment, so I will actually, there is a recommendation. I'm going to now call for a motion, and I suspect that Councillor Greason will actually suggest that foreshadowed motion is the motion that you wish to table. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So you're moving that motion?
Yes.
Now, I think we need to see that motion, and then I'll call for a seconder. And by the magic that is in front of us, that is the motion. Councillor Greason, just check that, make sure that is the motion you're proposing.
So if you don't mind, it is quite long, and I would like to just point out some of the salient points. And I thank the council officers for pulling this together for me. Obviously, I haven't got familiarity with this kind of detail, but
I just wonder, Councillor Greason, just for process, to save you pointing out too much, that if there is a seconder for the motion, so to make sure it doesn't lapse and save you all the effort.
I need to put the motion to refuse this application.
That's what you're basically doing. This is a motion to refuse the application. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Uri. Okay, terrific. So there is a motion on the table to refuse. Councillors, Councillor Greason, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would like to speak to the motion. And I'd like to...
Sorry, I hope you didn't mind me interrupting there, because that actually now gives you the freedom to continue.
All right, thank you.
For 5 minutes.
Okay. Look, this motion to refuse is based on a number of concerns which relate to protecting country, habitat and fauna that have been progressively lost due to development and that will be further impacted by sea level rise and increasing rate and severity of storm events. Further concerns relate to Council's liability for the future impacts of the development decisions. The issues of concern that I wish to raise are the loss of the low-lying field that forms a buffer for the adjacent Ramsar wetlands, the risk of harm to the adjacent Ramsar wetlands, the loss of habitat for the migratory wader, Latham snipe, the likelihood of failure of the proposed drainage infrastructure for the project, given predictions for Jones Bay that by 2050 there will be a sea level rise of 25 centimetres and saltwater inundation, the risk of coastal acid sulphate soils on the site, and importantly, the Council's future liability for this development. And just for your information, the Council's legal advisors, Maddox, gave a recent briefing to councillors on managing climate risk, and they stated the risk of negligence in making planning decisions is of considerable concern to councils, particularly relating to flooding and bushfires. And they stated that Council must ensure updated flood modelling and that the most up-to-date information is incorporated into planning decisions. In 2022, the CSIRO released its report on the vulnerability of Gippsland Lake's Ramsar site and its catchment to bushfire and climate change. In their report, they state that the Gippsland Lakes in the year 2050, there's a projected 25 centimetre sea level rise, which would inundate existing shoreline habitats, including Jones Bay. The CSIRO findings project that by 2030, storm surge heights for Eagle Bay will have increased from 0.1 to 0.3 metres and by 2070 to 0.7 metres. Whilst there's the clause in the proposed conditions that requires the proponent to undertake a coastal hazard vulnerability assessment, it is our responsibility to take these considerations into account when we make our decision to support or refuse this application. The low-lying section of the field on 10 Fullarton Drive abuts the walking track which forms the boundary of the Ramsar wetlands. It is likely to be inundated through sea level rise over the next 25 years and further impacted by projected high sea level and storm events. This is where the stormwater drainage infrastructure is intended to be built. Salty water inundation from this infrastructure will most likely cause it to fail. Council assumes ownership and responsibility for it once it's completed, and if it fails, will be responsible for building new stormwater drainage at great cost to East Gippsland ratepayers and possibly to the residents in this development. Council has not had the capacity to undertake its own vulnerability assessment at this stage, and I'm not willing to assume that the data available to us is sufficiently detailed to make a decision about this application. The risk of any loss of these important Ramsar wetlands is also the responsibility of councillors in a development like this. There needs to be a buffer between the wetlands and any development that allows the wetland plants and animals to migrate to higher land as the sea level rises. The application before us actually removes most of the buffer between the Ramsar wetlands border and the proposed road, causing coastal squeeze by placing the drainage swales and retention dams in the low-lying area of the field. The proposed residential housing will be built on the main part of the habitat for the significant population of Latham snipe that roosts here every year, and the proposed drainage infrastructure will remove most of the rest of their habitat at this site. The snipe also require a substantial buffer between their habitat and any construction, and none has been built into this plan. It is known that this species is intolerant of disturbance and will leave the area and not return. The natural habitat for these birds will have been almost completely lost in this area. The bird has been listed under the EPBC Act and therefore is a matter of national environmental significance and must be protected from significant impacts. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Uri. Thank Councillor Greason. Your Councillor Uri, you seconded the motion and you have an opportunity to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm speaking in support of this motion to refuse. I acknowledge the efforts of our council staff and the proponent in bringing this application for decision. Considerable changes have been made, largely in response to community concerns. For example, reduction of lots from 77 to 59, changes made in order to share views, the addition of the requirement to undertake a coastal hazard assessment study, and referral of the application for assessment under the federal EPBC Act. I acknowledge the right of the developer to submit this application, which applies to the general residential zone. And furthermore, I acknowledge that we do need more homes. However, the proposal, as it stands, leaves me with several substantial concerns which I believe have not been adequately addressed or where mitigation measures may, in my view, not be effective. Primarily, these concerns are the impact in the short and longer terms on sensitive, increasingly rare fringing wetlands on our Gippsland lakes and the adjacent Ramsar listed wetlands. The impact in the short and longer terms on habitat for the nationally endangered Latham snipe. The inability to cite, consider and seek expert advice on an actual plan for a workable drainage stormwater infrastructure system. The impact of sea level rise on the drainage stormwater infrastructure and the risk of need for replacement at council cost to the next generation, even though it may only be one of many systems which will be in need of redesign and replacement around the Gippsland lakes and in coastal settlements by 2030. I'm also very much concerned about what I regard as the very conditional approval of DWELP. In there, I won't read out their comments, but the comments are in page 475 of our meeting notes this evening. I accept that some of the expected negative impacts on the fringing wetlands over the coming years and decades will occur due to sea level rise and storm surge and slowly impinging salt and brackish water into a freshwater system. But this damage risk, in my mind, stands to be exacerbated by impacts from the development itself, as the principle of allowing migration of such habitats will not be possible. Direct impacts may also be caused by the increasing urbanisation. People, animals, litter, passive recreation, runoff, noise, lighting, weed infestation, etc. The housing development itself, as well as the land taken up by the drainage and stormwater system, will encroach significantly onto Latham snipe habitat. Councillors, I urge you to consider not supporting this proposal. Our highest level strategies, our community vision and our council strategy reference the importance of the environment to us all. In the front of this evening's council papers, we are reminded that council has 5 strategic objectives in our plan. The third of these is a natural
Councillor
environment.
Uri, I'll just draw your comments to a close if we could.
A natural environment that is managed and enhanced. I do not believe that the proposal before us will maintain, let alone enhance, the beautiful natural environment of Point Fullarton and its rare and valuable Ramsar wetlands.
Councillor Uri, thank you for your comments. Councillors, the motion opposed. Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor White.
Mine is just a question on some clarification, please.
We're almost beyond that. We are in debate, Councillor White, but I will allow this.
Yeah, it's through governance. You asked if there were questions.
Sorry, it's coming through me,
on the
Councillor
officer-
White, not through governance. So you have a quick question of clarification. We are in debate.
Right, so you asked if there were questions on the officer's recommendation, of which there were none, but now we have a new recommendation. Should there have been, or why wasn't there an opportunity to ask questions on that as it was put up on the screen?
I think the motion and the alternative motion complies with the governance rules.
So no questions?
Not at this stage, Councillor White, from the chair. I don't think so, no. Just stand by. I'm going to seek clarification from... So Councillor White is asking a question. Can he ask a question about the alternative motion? Yep. And I invited a question on the officer's report initially. Stand by, Councillor White. So do you have a question of clarification on the alternative motion, the motion that's on the table, Councillor White?
Yes, I do, and it's to an officer.
Thank you, and through you,
Stand
Chair.
by, Councillor White. Yep.
As questions would typically be allowed of officers' recommendations, it would be appropriate to allow questions of clarification of the councillor moving the motion.
Yeah, okay. So, Councillor White, would you like to ask Councillor Greason a question of clarification on this particular alternative motion?
Thank you. I'll direct it to Councillor Greason then. I've read the officer recommendation, and in point 2 it says is consistent with the requirements and objectives of the East Gippsland Planning Scheme. Now, Councillor Greason's one in point 2 says it is inconsistent with the requirements and objectives of East Gippsland Planning Scheme. There can't be two right answers here. This is what's confused me. Is this overriding the planners?
Councillor Greason, so you have put up an alternative proposal there, an alternative motion that states as Councillor White said.
I don't know that it's overriding the council officers. The council officers have made a recommendation, and my position is that it is inconsistent with the planning scheme. Sorry.
For the reasons that are stated there, I guess.
Yeah, and I think you've got all that list of points there where it's inconsistent. Thank you. With the planning policy framework, with all of these clauses, and I'm not going to read them out to you, Councillor.
Councillor White, thanks for that. So yes, there is a fundamental tension. And councillors, are there any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Crook.
I'd like to speak for the motion to refuse, Mr Mayor. Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge the work that officers within the planning team and our council have done around this application. We've brought weeks now, if not months, of questions and queries to them, and they have responded in earnest and I think done an excellent job to try and address our various concerns. I'd just like to recognise their contribution to the process. But it's my firm belief that the details in this development are still largely hypothetical. We've seen various concept plans, we've seen various drainage designs, all of which will be referred to conditional approvals. I don't feel comfortable deferring this decision to a bunch of processes down the track. When I was elected to make evidence-based decisions, I feel like I need to have the evidence in front of me upon which to base those decisions. I don't have that at this point, and so I will be backing a motion to send this plan back to the developer to provide some further details and clarity on exactly how these concerns will be addressed with greater certainty, so I can make an evidence and informed decision. Thank you.
Councillor Crook. Councillors, is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against the motion? Well, for the benefit of the people here, I'll be speaking against this particular motion, and I think it's important you understand why. That for a long time I've heard the arguments and had the reports from the officers, and from my perspective I have to trust the rigour of the secondary approval process. So what I'm suggesting, if this was approved, was a primary permit that is subject to secondary approvals. And I have to trust those secondary approval processes. And they're quite rigorous, and councillors, you have brought those to the fore and have put them in as conditions, and such as the coastal hazard vulnerability assessment and the EPBC approvals process. And so the secondary approvals are quite rigorous, and if they cannot be met, then this is going to struggle. But I think that what I'm seeing in front of me is a planning application with a set of conditions. And just for the benefit of those who are here, that's my thinking, and that's why I would be voting against this alternative motion, or the motion that Councillor Greeson's put up. And I think it's for the benefit of the community to understand that. So, councillors, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? Those against? The motion is lost. Councillor Greeson. Councillors, we now lapse, that motion is lost, which means that there is a motion on the table, the recommendation from the officers, and let me just navigate my way back there, excuse me. So there is a recommendation. Is there a motion, councillors? Councillor Allen. Councillor Stowe. Councillor Allen, you've moved the motion.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I agree entirely with what you just said, that we have had a recommendation from not only our Shire officers, but from all referral authorities that have said that it meets their requirements. So I think that we've got to accept their expertise and make a decision on the information that is in front of us.
Councillor Allen. Councillor Stowe, you seconded. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Look, yourself and Councillor Allen have both summed it up well. I'd just like to add that the developers have made significant concessions on this project. The VCAT concerns have been addressed. There's been a reduction in lots. It's been to CMA, DECA, and we're sharing the views. Now, no development will ever be perfect, but I think we've met all the obligations that we can, and I support the motion.
Councillors, is the motion opposed? Councillor Greason, would you like to speak against the motion?
I don't think that there is sufficient evidence to support the motion. I don't think we have a final planning application in front of us. We know that there's going to be many, many changes made to this, depending on what EPPC comes back with, depending on, you know, further decisions to be made with the drainage infrastructure, etc., etc. And I can't support it. Thank you.
Councillor Greason, thank you. Councillors, would anybody else, any other councillors like to speak for or against the motion? Councillors, I put the motion to the vote then. That is the recommendation in front of us, that this planning application is approved. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried 4-3. Councillors. Excuse me. Councillors, we will move on in the meeting. Item 5.1.2, which is the Economic Development Advisory Committee meetings, of the minutes of the meeting held 17th of July. And this is you, Ms Weigel, is it not? No, it's not. It's actually Mr McConnell. Pardon me. Place and Community.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, we're reintroducing a practice of presenting the Advisory Committee minutes to Council for your noting and information. And really one of the things that does is aids in the transparency of the considerations of these important groups which do advise Council on a range of issues, and in this case in relation to economic development matters. You have before you the minutes of the July meeting of the Economic Development Advisory Committee. One of the key features of that meeting was a discussion of economic and industry transition that was led by Chris Buckingham from the Latrobe Valley Authority. So I just draw that to your attention and your consideration. So, councillors, before you is a recommendation simply to receive and note the minutes. Thank you.
Mr McConnell, thank you. Councillors, are there any questions of our officers? All silent. Councillors, there's a recommendation. Do I have a motion? Councillor Crook? Councillor Stowe? Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Stowe? Is the motion opposed, councillors? I'd like to say this is a really important committee. The minutes are really telling of the work that they're doing. And once again, it took a while to get there, but I think we've got the right people around the table. And I have great hopes in the future for the work that this committee will do, and I hope that this council and councils in future seek and take advice from this committee. I'll put the motion to the vote. Councillors, all those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Carried unanimously. Item 5.2, I think that's where I'm at. Is that correct? 5.2.1, Council Plan Progress Report.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Councillors, before you is a report titled Council Plan Progress Report Quarter 4 2022-23. This Quarter 4 report covers the reporting period from 1st of April to 30 June 2023 and provides a high-level summary of major initiatives and strategic indicators and actions. 4 of the 9 major initiatives were completed. 4 initiatives are yet to be completed, and the draft housing strategy is due to be finalised in this current financial year. The initiatives completed that are yet to be completed have been carried forward into the current action plan for the current financial year. Of the remaining 74 actions, 52 actions, so 70% were completed. 4 actions achieved greater than 80% in their delivery. 1 was placed on hold, and 17 are yet to be completed and have been carried forward, as I mentioned earlier. Tonight we have Nola Brady, Manager People and Capability, here to address any questions of a technical nature.
Thank you
The
very
report
much.
is presented for your consideration, councillors. Thank you.
Terrific. And Ms Brady, we always welcome you into the chamber. Great. Councillors, are there any questions of officers on this quarterly report? Progress report, yes, quarter 4. Councillor Crook.
Thank you, Mayor. I just note major initiative number 5 to implement climate risk analysis to identify likely impact of extreme weather and climate events on council infrastructure assets and the ability to provide community services is behind schedule. I notice it's now listed as an action for 2023-24. When are we actually likely to see that? Has that work actually begun, and when are we likely to see it completed?
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mayor. I think I've just
pinball around the table.
caught
here.
that handball. So this obviously fits in my area. As I think councillors understand, and as the commentary indicates, we were reliant on federal disaster relief funding to undertake this work. So the work is scoped. Funding has been approved, but contracts are not yet signed. So we can't actually commence the project until we receive confirmation for the funding. So we're ready to go with the work, but we can't commence until such time as we have a contract in place that confirms funding. Thank you.
Good question, thank you. Thanks for the clarification. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Uri.
Thank you, Mayor. This is obviously a very important report and one that we need to take, we need to follow quite carefully. This finishes in the previous financial year though, and there are some actions that are carrying through to the current year. We've adopted our current annual plan, is that right? Is that correct for the current year? I'm going to make a few comments about our map of our strategic plans and their accessibility, but I'll do that perhaps in the next item with the draft annual report. I'm finding it a little bit hard to follow this map on page 632, and it's one that we commonly use, but I think, maybe we can revise it a little bit to make it easier for everybody to follow. So just to confirm that the incomplete major initiatives in this plan that we're seeing tonight have been carried through to the new plan. Yes.
Through you, Mayor. Yes, Councillor Uri, they have, and we've indicated in the report which major initiative in the current council plan that they equate to.
Yep.
And then progress on those will be updated in the Q1 report that council will receive shortly.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Councillor Uri, thank you for the question. Councillor, are there any further questions? Councillor Stowe.
I note in item number 8 we've completed the implementation of the customer experience strategy, and I also understand we get a significant amount of inquiry. Could you just tell us what we can expect to see in the future to enhance the process?
Certainly can, in my substantive role. We're looking to continue our improvement in the customer response area and how the quality and the timeliness of our responses to customers, both in telecommunications, direct and correspondence. So we have some work that we're doing there, and we're improving the level of information available to front-end officers to be able to respond to community. We're also improving our data collection, capturing where there's first point resolution through our community and our services. Improved training for staff across the organisation to be able to respond to community and the experience. We're also looking at how we capture information on community satisfaction to deal with people who have dealt with real services, like who have actually dealt with our services, so that we can inform the customer satisfaction survey. There's also some further work being looked at in terms of, ongoing systems that we can look at enhancing, at least doing the review process of that in the next year.
That's terrific. We must look after our customers.
Councillor Stowe, thank you. Councillors, are there any further questions of officers? Let me navigate my way back, and there is a recommendation here, councillors, there it is, that we receive and note this report. Councillors, is there a motion? Councillor Greason, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Allen. Councillor Greason, did you want to speak to the motion?
Oh, no, it's just really good to see this annual report, the progress report. It's very well set out and it's very reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
No, nothing to add.
Councillor, the motion opposed? Anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Thank you, councillors. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion's carried unanimously. 5.2.2 is the draft annual report.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, councillors, before you is a report seeking adoption of the annual report 2022-23. This annual report has been produced to meet the regulatory obligations as required under the Local Government Act and utilising the Local Government Better Practice Guide Model Report. Council is committed to transparent reporting and accountability to its community. This report informs the community on how the commitments in the Council Plan 2021 to 25 and the 2022-23 annual budget were delivered. The report has been written with a focus on a significant number of achievements during a period of challenges for the Council and the community. This report includes highlights about the provision of services, new infrastructure and recovery projects, community celebrations, events, advocacy and grants and funding opportunities. Thank you, Mayor. The report is presented for councillors' consideration this evening.
And there's so much more in there as well.
Indeed.
Indeed. Thank you, Ms Helling. Councillors, are there any questions of officers? I might just ask the question, all the graphics and the layout was done internally by our team?
Through you, Mayor, yes. The information was collected by officers and then provided to our communications team, who did a fabulous job in putting it together. So, yes.
Well, we should acknowledge them in every way, shape and form. It's a beautiful document and it's the graphics and layout are great. Councillors, any further questions of officers? Yes, Councillor Uri.
Thank you. Look, I'm happy to take this up in a different forum, perhaps in our next briefing, but I've found it a little bit, I've been on a bit of a mission to find our strategic documents, to find out major strategic documents and their action plans. Yep. And I've been finding it a little bit tricky, but as I say, I'm happy to take it up elsewhere. I think that one of my issues is that sometimes I'm searching for a document that has a different name. For example, the Municipal Wellbeing Plan is called Well Placed for Wellbeing, and that makes it tricky when you go on a search. So anyway, we'll have a bit of a conversation about that. But just a comment about the draft annual report. It's a fabulous document. Everybody, scrolls through it and looks at the gorgeous photos and remembers all those wonderful community events. That list of highlights from the year just reminds us of all the work that's been done by everybody in our council over the last year. It's a fantastic document. I really enjoy reading it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Uri.
Just a little comment, if I may. A lot of people don't understand the amount of work that goes into sections of the Shire. And I note that we've got 3,000 kilometres of roads to maintain. Now, just understand 3,000 kilometres here to Perth. I mean, that is a huge amount of roads for one medium-sized Shire to look after. And sometimes we get told we have potholes or whatever, but I've been around a lot of roads in various states and our roads are no worse and in most cases a lot better than what I see elsewhere. So good job, team.
And I know the governance team over there are looking at me and asking, are you speaking to the motion that hasn't been put yet? But that's all right. So, so are there any other questions of officers? I will ask if there's a motion from this recommendation, councillors. Do I have a motion? Councillor Allen, seconded Councillor Greason. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Only just to reiterate what's been said about the document's fantastic and you can dig out all manner of information in a very, very easy to get at format. So I just thank everyone that was involved with it for its presentation. It's really good.
Nice job, thank you. Councillor Greason, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think everyone has spoken to the motion already, but I just feel quite proud of what this council achieves and being involved with it, so it's great.
Yeah, here. Councillors, the motion opposed? Or would any of you like to speak for or against the motion? Councillors, I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, the moment you've been waiting for, item 6.
What urgent business?
Could you lock the doors, please, Nola, on the way out? Councillors, it gives me great pleasure to reflect on the last 12 months and to acknowledge that this is my last the last council meeting in this term as mayor that I'll be presiding over the council chamber. And I just wanted to point out that serving as the mayor of East Gippsland Shire is a position of immense honour and responsibility. We know that our region is blessed with natural beauty, diverse communities and a rich cultural heritage. And stepping into this role again, and I thank you for the trust that you've given me, councillors, my primary commitment was, as ever, to enhance the quality of life for our residents and preserve the unique character of our region. Now, that means that the mayor's busy. There's no doubt about it. And when I looked at the events this year, we counted 243 separate commitments and events that the mayor, that was me, and that I attended. It wasn't the personal best of last year, which was over 300, but it's still a demanding role and one that one must love and cherish to do it. And those of us who have done that know exactly that, and Councillor White's in that situation too. I want to thank Brigitte Dew for managing the diary and the calendar and ensuring the intention to get the mayor to the right place at the right time was always there. Thank you, Brigitte. I want to thank the Honourable and Dependable Deputy Mayor and note that you're a loved and valued community member. Councillor Allen, thank you so much for stepping in while I took leave. You did an amazing job. A couple of challenging council meetings. Councillors, you almost behaved. Councillors, I just want to point out that's the first time in my 3 terms as councillor that I have sought and taken leave, and I want to thank you for allowing me that, and thank you, Councillor Allen, for stepping in.
Thank you, mate.
I'd like to acknowledge the excellent work of the CEO and the executive leadership team in implementing the work that elected councillors have put in front of you in the last 12 months. So I salute you and the work that you've done. To the officers and all the staff in the Shire for your work in the past 12 months, I salute you and I look forward to being with you all tomorrow and acknowledging that work. You're a great bunch of people and wherever I go, I feel proud to be part of the organisation. Even when there's one of our trucks broken down at the top of the hill at Now an Hour today, I felt proud that it was parked safely off the side of the road with the safety triangles in the right place. A gearbox seal, was it? Okay, yeah, well, that's a steep hill and it was fully laden. So first and foremost, fostering community engagement and active participation has been at the core of my mayoral agenda. Listening to concerns, ideas and the dreams of our residents is pivotal, and 243 meetings will do that. You do a lot of listening. Understanding the diverse needs of our community, from Bairnsdale to Mallacoota, is vital in shaping inclusive policies that cater for everyone. And to that end, it's been another year that's reinforced how important it is for us to show up and represent the community, no matter how hard or far. Councillors, here's my quote this year. Do you recall The Castle, that great Australian film from 1997? Yes? Great. So Eric Banner's first role. The vibe. Do you remember the vibe? That luminary lawyer from the castle, Danny Denuto. Do you remember him talking about the vibe? The vibe. Well, the Shire is also about the vibe. And when we say the vibe, it's about the many communities, more than 40 in our Shire, of which I've had the pleasure of meeting and interacting with in the last 12 months. And it's a chance when you go out to those communities to see, feel, taste, smell, hear and touch the vibe of our communities, and then be able to represent that vibe as and where required. It means we have to be there and to viscerally connect. For, as most of us know, whenever we meet people, and I've had the pleasure this year of meeting premiers, prime ministers, governors general, they always ask, how's it going out down there in East Gippsland? And we usually talk about how things are going about the vibe. We talk about how things are going from understanding the vibe in the community. For example, in the last couple of weeks, and I think as Councillor Allen mentioned, Mallacoota, we opened the new skate park. What a great vibe.
It was great.
Congratulations, and I really want to point out the amazing Jai Ruby Nation, one of our terrific young people down there at Mallacoota, and that person has been a linchpin in the design and development of that skate park. And an absolute champion. She's a key figure in the sanctuary, and she was really involved in all the consultation. So Jai Ruby was great and still is great. A really big call out. The vibe of getting young people into the place and having a voice and then seeing those outcomes is terrific. And last week at Now and Now for the Community Regional Context Analysis, or at Goongerah or at Bonang with the launch of the wellness space and the remote medical service. Great vibes. These are communities like so many of ours that have got themselves up, dusted themselves off, and despite the incredible challenges have not given up and want to move forward and move ahead. And that vibe is the culture of the place and the way we do things around here. It's the feel. And being able to experience that is part of a real privilege. It really is. Councillors, environmental stewardship stands as a paramount concern. East Gippsland's pristine natural habitats, including our national parks, our forests and our coastal areas, need vigilant protection. We need to champion sustainable practices, advocate for conservation initiatives and collaborate with key stakeholders and environmental organisations and decision makers to preserve those natural ecosystems. And implementing the eco-friendly policies like our Environmental Sustainability Strategy 2232, promoting renewable energy resources, launching EV charging stations have been key steps towards a greener and more sustainable future. Council's economic development and supporting local businesses have been instrumental in driving prosperity. By creating a conducive environment for entrepreneurship, attracting investment and facilitating business growth, we can stimulate our local economy. Partnering with industry leaders and educational institutions through the work of One Gippsland, for example, enables us to foster innovation and advocate for skill development opportunities, ensuring our community is a workforce equipped for the jobs of the future. And I'll deal with that in a second. One Gippsland has allowed us to take a leadership role, not just in our 6 local government areas, but with key industry partners, such as Glarwac, Food and Fibre Gippsland, Fed Uni, TAFE Gippsland and Destination Gippsland, representing key industries in our region. And the newly reinvigorated and, as we've heard tonight, Eco Development Committee is another testament to the work that's going on in this space. Councillors, the changes to the planning and governance as recommended by the Sandon report and implemented through the likes of the housing statement and proposed and already legislative planning changes will require some readjustments for us in that space, governance and planning. Planning Victoria and the potential implications for planning need to be monitored, and while it will provide opportunities, the changes may also impact on our ability to voice local input into planning. We need to monitor that. Councillors, ALGA, Australian Local Government Association, has been another important aspect of the role this year, including, as I mentioned earlier, meeting Prime Minister, Governor-General, federal ministers, opposition members in Canberra while they're there with ALGA, advocating for our Shire. And with what happens to be an increasing vertical fiscal imbalance, the decreased ability of local government to meet its financial needs through rate capping, we've had to constantly advocate to state and federal governments for funding and grants. And by jingoes, we've done that, and congratulations to the officers for leveraging those grants. One Gippsland, ALGA, MAV and Rural Councils Victoria have been key pivot points for us in this regard and have allowed us to have a collective, collaborative voice. And I was mentioning earlier, Jobs of the Future includes advocacy to stakeholders with proposed offshore wind energy projects like in Bass Strait. And of course, while we welcome the investment in this project, we also advocate for the effects on offshore fishing industry and urge ongoing consultation in this matter for an industry that's also threatened by Commonwealth fishing licence closures. The shock announcement, councillors, of the early closure of the native timber harvesting took us all off guard. While we acknowledge much work has been undertaken in the timber transition in the likes of Orbost with the Future of Orbost project, I do acknowledge that. We note and congratulate the project partners on the state government announcement this week of the $115,000 Seed Institute in Orbost, one of the 5 pillars identified through the smart specialisation work that they've done. And a real congratulation. That's fantastic. That's a step in the right direction. We acknowledge other affected communities are working through their own responses and recognise the work at Now, recently with the community scan and audit culminating in the launch of their community context analysis, and we will look forward to similar work in other communities like Swifts Creek. Councillors, infrastructure development is essential to enhance the overall wellbeing of our residents. We champion and advocate tirelessly to ensure we secure the funding for upgrading our infrastructure, our community assets and more. Better roads, accessible recreation facilities and quality Shire services are not just amenities, they're fundamental rights that every resident of Gippsland deserves. The ongoing record CapEx program is what our community expects and deserves, and we're excited to be able to implement it. I acknowledge the incredible work of our finance team, led by the CEO and the ELT, to ensure we have the financial wherewithal to meet the needs of this program now and into the future. Councillors, as has been mentioned tonight, disaster preparedness and community resilience are of paramount importance. Given our region's vulnerability to natural disasters like bushfire and flood, and earthquakes, I didn't know we were on the Pacific Rim, we need to continue to collaborate closely with emergency services, and again, a call out to the responding agencies in the last weeks, implement robust disaster management plans and invest in community training and resources. Ensuring the safety and security of our residents during emergencies is non-negotiable. Recent events have been a timely reminder of this. And to this end, I would like to also acknowledge the importance and ongoing work of our community recovery committees, or CRCs. Each of those affected communities has its own place, space and pace of recovery, and we continue to support and respond as required. And I acknowledge the work of the members of those CRCs and the staff who support those committees. Natural events like flood, earthquake and fire will continue to affect us, and the resilience and capacity building that those CRCs create, it's not just about recovery, it's a future focus, goes beyond their original remit, and well done to those members. I really congratulate them. Councillors, recovery from Black Summer fires is still an ongoing issue, and we know the data from damage, rebuilds and applications. There are emerging trends that continue to concern us all in this rebuild space and recovery space, and I thank everyone who continues to be involved in that. Councillors, preserving and celebrating our cultural heritage, including recognising the rich traditions of local Indigenous communities, has been an integral part of my work in the last 12 months. While the results of the referendum at the weekend didn't support the voice to Parliament as proposed, this does not and should not stop our ongoing good relationship with our First Peoples. When our local Aboriginal communities prosper and thrive, we all do. Promoting cultural events, supporting Indigenous initiatives and fostering a sense of unity and understanding among our diverse population contributes to a harmonious, prosperous and inclusive East Gippsland that we all want. Councillors, my vision is like yours, to continue to work to ensure ours is a vibrant, sustainable and resilient East Gippsland Shire where every resident feels valued and empowered. It doesn't mean everybody gets what they want. To this end, I've continued my work, commitment to lifelong learning, and that's targeted and specific, and then using that knowledge. And I thank and acknowledge the Shire and the MAV for supporting me through that company director's course this year, and I really take that opportunity seriously and ensure that I reciprocate that investment and to be a better community leader as a result. This learning and being with you, councillors, has refocused my belief in fostering collaboration, embracing innovation and prioritising the wellbeing of our communities. These contribute to a future where East Gippsland continues to thrive as our loved place of natural beauty, cultural richness and community strength. I hope that together we can, councillors, continue to write the ongoing chapters of progress and prosperity for my loved region. And councillors, in all these things, in everything I've done in the last 12 months, I acknowledge the support and patient companionship and love of my wife, Alice. Thank you, councillors.
Mr Mayor, if I may indulge myself just for a moment, I've been monitoring the ratings tonight, and we've gone from a peak of 28 to the Vibe, and regrettably we're now down to Alison and myself. So,
so the Vibe has dropped. And councillors, I will submit that written report for posterity, and that also includes the Mayor's commitments and diary events for the last 12 months as well, and they'll be there for the record. Thank you for the opportunity to share that with you, councillors. It's been an amazing 12 months, and I really appreciate being around you, and you have also made me a better person. Councillor Greason.
Can I just say thank you to Mayor Reeves? It's been a pleasure being a councillor under you in the 2 years as Mayor. You run a tight ship, but you're generally fair.
Generally fair. I'm not sure about these conditional fairness comments, but anyway, thank you.
And I, enjoy your frequent word plays, which I think are mostly very entertaining, clever and thoughtful. So thank you very much. I just wonder about whether we should apply the 5-minute rule to mayoral term addresses.
Fair point. You could have called a point of order, but luckily I'm in the chair, so I can overrule you in this occasion. Thank you, councillors. Thank you for that indulgence. I don't think there's any urgent business, so now we're going to move into confidential business, councillors, and I need a motion to close the meeting to public in accordance with provision section 66(2) of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider the following list of items 8.1 and 8.2 of the agenda. Moved Councillor Allen, seconded Councillor Stowe. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody like to speak for or against the motion? I see none. I'll put the motion to the vote to move into confidence. Thank you, councillors. CEO, that's carried unanimously. Ben, we're back into public. Councillors and officers and those who are viewing us, thank you for being here tonight. It is now 2013, which is 8:14 now, and I would like to declare the meeting closed and thank you for your attendance. And as always, officers, thank you for your diligent reports. Thank you for the guidance and support, and officers and councillors, thank you for your decision making tonight. Good evening. Good night, John. See you later.
Signing off.